What is up, fellas, and welcome to another episode of Rewriting History with me, the Goop. So Trump won. I got my Let's Go Brandon shirt on. I didn't even vote for him this time, but I'm glad that Kamala didn't win, and I'm not too worried about offending people on this channel. This is a history channel, not a politics channel, but I think the crossover between Kamala fans, like not Trump haters, but Kamala fans and people who are into this kind of stuff is pretty much non-existent. So I was pretty excited to hear his announcement right after winning about his quincentennial. I just realized I took my notes for this show out of the room, so I might have to grab those at some point. We'll see. We'll see how smoothly this goes. But for his quincentennial party, the 250th anniversary of America, it definitely had some World Fair vibes to me when he was talking about it. I don't know exactly what it's going to be, but I'm excited to see if it does bring back any of that energy of like the old World's Fairs. That would be really exciting. Yeah, I think if we can bring back some of that old World Fair energy, that could have a really powerful impact on people, like actually seeing wonder, seeing people create incredible things in short amounts of times, and just being able to experience that kind of stuff again. I think it could be really good for the nation. So let's see. We'll see what happens. I am going to go grab my notes because I actually planned this episode out and have an order to go in. So I'm going to be right back. And there they are on the floor next to my desk. Okay, whatever. We got them now. So next week, the episode will be on Saturday instead of Sunday because I have Dr. Elizabeth Weiss, an archaeologist, coming on the show to discuss the extreme culture of archaeology and the dangers of NAGPRA, and to share her experiences dealing with NAGPRA and fighting back against this insanity and wokeness that has infected the sciences, particularly American archaeology and Canadian. And one of my questions is, how much is this affecting the rest of the world? Is this going on everywhere? So we're going to get into all of that next week. It's the episode I'm most excited about of all of the episodes I've done. I'm going to be sitting down with a real archaeologist, and one who is not constrained by the same academic constraints that other academics are. She is just a very honest person. She cares about the truth. And she's willing to have a conversation with someone like me, an alternate historian with a very small channel on YouTube. So that's very, very cool. And I'm very, very excited about it. Last week, I talked about Kailasa Temple and some other things, and I rushed through some parts of the episode. I didn't cover everything I wanted to. So down in the description, both last week and this week, I have a video from Praveen Mohan, and I actually don't have anything to show. I could potentially play his video in the background while I talk. But he discusses tunnels underneath the Kailasa Temple. And, Praveen Mohan is not necessarily the most reliable for everything. He is an Ancient Aliens guy. He likes to speculate pretty wildly about ancient technology. But generally speaking, when he's speaking about history and factual things, he's fairly on point. So when he says he asked one of the tour guides there at the Kailasa Temple about the tunnels, or one of the security guards maybe, because they were blocked off with a gate, and he was told that they go down 40 feet and then they go off to down into the ground underneath the temple, 40 feet down, and then they go off to the right and gradually get smaller until a person can't fit through them, so they don't know what's at the end of it. I tend to think he's probably telling the truth about that. You can see several tunnels in the video where they look like they would be drainage tunnels. They look like they're for drainage. That's what he suggests they probably are. But keep in mind with the Kailasa Temple, and I've got a whole bunch of pictures to show. I just don't have pictures of these tunnels. It's in a solid mountain of granite, right? So these tunnels are smaller than people can fit through. Check out the video. You know, I don't know what to make of it. I don't know how it's hard to tell in the video how deep these tunnels truly go because it's dark rock. There's shadows. You can't really tell if there's a back to them or not. It would be great if someone would go down there with like a camera that they could drive into the tunnel, or even just a bright flashlight that we could, you know, properly see it. But it is rather interesting if there's these tunnels that are smaller than people can even fit through. How are they carving them with iron chisels? Something I meant to bring up last week. And then I got a comment last week, and I'll go ahead and pull up my slides now because I got a comment last week that the Kailasa Temple was not actually as impressive as the Iravan Temple. I kept calling it the Ivanian Temple, but the Iravan Temple in Hawaii. You know, they said that it's actually finer in detail than the Kailasa Temple. And I don't think I agree with that for a couple of reasons. One, the Kailasa Temple was, there was an army sent deliberately to destroy it for about a decade. It had been raided by multiple armies. You saw the picture last week of the plants growing in it, just the state of decay. And that was just from a couple hundred years of it being abandoned. So the outside of it is pretty rough, but you can still see some really that out of sync profile. But then if you go into the interior of the Kailasa Temple, it's not nearly as weathered. Am I able to actually zoom? I am. Okay, great. So it's not nearly as weathered and damaged as the outside, and you can begin to see that, you know, every inch of this thing is covered in detail. It's absolutely exquisite. This is after an army was sent to destroy it. Here's another image from the inside. Again, you can see the damage. Both of these statues have their heads broken off, right? But you can also see just how beautiful this temple once was. And again, this is all carved out of one piece of granite. That's another out of order photo. That's from the Holy Swarna Temple. And just trying to get some scale on this thing. I mean, you can see that person down there. This is the main temple in the center. There's stuff that goes around the temple, the rock. There's a very large, like, overcut or undercut under the rock, and more that goes to this temple around the edges. Later, I have a picture of the front because that's something you don't often see with this. But you can see there's more going into the sides here, right? There's more buildings or rooms inside of there. So it's not just, here's the front. So you have the main temple, which, do I have a good picture of that here? Not there. But you have the main temple, which you're seeing here. And then in front of all of that, you have this wall, right? And all of this was just solid granite carved out. 400,000 to 500,000 tons, 500,000 tons of granite for this structure alone. And there's 33 other caves in the Ellora cave systems. None of that granite is accounted for. Millions of tons of granite. And I had pictures of some of these other Ellora caves. I'm having some tech issues. I'm saving pictures, and the pictures aren't actually being saved. I go to sort through the pictures for the show, and like half the pictures I've saved aren't there. So I had some pictures of some of the other Ellora caves. They're also incredibly beautiful. They're very, very impressive. There's 33 of them. All of the rock from all of them, it's just gone. We have no idea what happened to the millions of tons of granite that was carved from them. This is another interior shot of the Kailasa Temple. And you can see the roof is detailed, every pillar is detailed. You know, the floor is polished to a near mirror finish, right? And this is all from one solid piece of granite. This is the lingam at the back. That's the deity of the temple, if you will. Another photo here with some people for scale. Just unbelievable work. And think about another view of the interior here. Beautiful pillars. I mean, these are far more detailed, in my opinion, than the Iraven temple. Just exquisite, beautiful work here. And there we go. Okay, and here's a nice wide shot of the front, again, to give you a sense of scale of this thing. It's absolutely massive. The amount of stone that was removed is absolutely massive. And this was allegedly done with iron chisels. And I actually believe that might be the case, because here we move on. This is not the Kailasa Temple. This looks very, very similar, but this is not the Kailasa Temple. It's another temple, Hindu temple, that is carved out of one giant piece of granite, where this mountain of granite was carved away from it. This is about 1/3 of the size of the Kailasa Temple, and it doesn't have that front portion. It's just the temple, and it was left unfinished. You can see this top part is finished up here, so this is, you know, the aesthetic they were going for. But as you move down the temple, you'll see that it is not completely finished. This image shows here the roof on the right, you can very clearly see is not finished over here. And if we go down, here's a very interesting part of this temple, because you see those holes in the granite, and that's how we still break apart granite today. Is you put some holes in there, you put some chisels in there, or you could use something that expands like wood and hot water. Whatever technique you're using, it starts with those holes, right? It starts with those holes. They're trying to split off that granite there. That doesn't indicate to me any type of high technology. That would indicate that they're using things like wood and hot water, or iron chisels, or whatever, you know, totally contemporary technologies with these time periods. However, there's more that goes into this than just the actual cutting of the rock. I mean, you look at this thing, you have to plan this entire structure out and then execute it perfectly. That you can't make any mistakes in this. You know, your left side, your right side, they all have to be even. You have to make sure you're taking off the exact right amount of rock. The execution of the Kailasa Temple, and also this Vettuvan coil, that's what that's called, Vettuvan coil. I mean, I don't know how you achieve this. It's absolutely mind-blowing, the level of, you know, complexity, difficulty that would be involved in creating this structure from the top down, you know, out of one piece of stone. And you can see in some more of these images, hopefully they saved. I'm not 100% sure what images I actually have now, because they didn't all save. But I'm looking for a specific one right now, which I think I might not have. You can see the chisel lines here, though, the chisel marks, or the pickaxe marks, or whatever tool they were using. Again, it's not indicative to me of high technology with these tool marks. This looks like what you would expect to see from the technology of the time, but still just actually executing this. Look at how beautiful this is. Look at how even everything is. Look at how perfect everything is. And it's not even finished, as you can clearly see. So they were working, hopefully I have the image. Here we go. This is the image I was looking for. So you can see that this up here is perfectly detailed. This is all completely finished. They're working their way down. You see the rough carvings. You still see the tool marks, right? They've carved out these little steps over here. Haven't even gotten to this side yet. So they're starting at the top, getting a rough shape, obviously, and then doing the detail work on the top and gradually forming it all the way down. it's just the planning and the execution really, really mind-blowing with this. Like, even if it was done with chisels, just the level of ingenuity involved is still something quite miraculous to me. And we don't know how it was done, right? Whether, even if this was done with iron chisels, we still don't know how. And the idea of slave labor is just ridiculous to me. The people creating this would have been the utmost of skilled craftsmen. You're telling me slaves created this? They didn't make a single mistake? That carving out of one piece of granite, these giant temples, these intricate temples, was done with slave labor? I don't know, man. I don't know. And one of the images that I wanted to show you is not there. Let me scroll very rapidly through my images to try and find it. It should be in this gallery somewhere. Here it is. So the Vettuvan Coil is way down here on the very southern tip of India. And the Kailasa Temple is way up here, a 13.5-day walk. And that's walking 24, hours a day, in the north of India. They were both built in the 8th century. The Kailasa is towards the end of the 8th century. So like 790, I think, roughly, is when it was allegedly completed. And the Vettuvan Coil, I think, slightly earlier in the 7th century or 8th century, but, also like mid 700s. They were by two different kings. These were two different kingdoms living here, right? This is a very large space. India was not always unified. There were a lot of different empires and cultures going on. So two different civilizations, two different kingdoms built these two structures. Supposedly they're not related to each other whatsoever. Supposedly there's no connection. It's just a coincidence that they look extremely similar. Were built around the same time, using, I'd imagine, the same techniques, but supposedly no relation whatsoever, no connection to these two structures. Not sure if I buy that either. This is Angkor Wat, which is the largest, I think, religious complex in the entire world. And they're not until later, but I have some stuff to help give you an idea of the scale of this. But even those don't really properly do it, because you have Angkor Wat, which is a whole complex in itself, just the Angkor Wat part. But then you have all of these other temple complexes in the near surrounding areas. And there were some LiDAR scans done a while back that suggest that like this whole massive area, like the size of Los Angeles, is all one complex. It's all connected by canals and very impressive water management systems. And it's just Angkor Wat is one of the most impressive structures to exist. I know I say that about the Kailasa Temple, but I think they both easily fall into that category, ancient structures that still exist today. And much like Kailasa, Angkor Wat has been through many different rulers and cultures. It has been raided many times. It's been looted many times. It's been cannibalized to create other structures. I mean, boatloads and boatloads for years and years of bricks and stones were removed from Angkor Wat, and this is still what's left. This is from the Angkor Wat complex. I think it's actually on Ta Prohm. It might be on Angkor Wat proper. I'm not 100% sure, but this is the Stegosaurus, the famous Stegosaurus that's carved into the Indian temple. And man, that sure does look like a Stegosaurus. Some people try and say it's a hippo or something with, or a rhinoceros with a lotus flower behind it. That doesn't look like a lotus flower. You can see it goes all the way down its tail like this. It sure looks like a stegosaurus. So why were they carving stegosauruses? And the rest of this pillar has other animals above and below it. Just one of those interesting anachronisms. It's hard to get a scale of Angkor Wat because it is so massive. And I don't really have anything like a person in this image, but this is just one of the towers. You can see that it's very eroded, it's very damaged, right? But you also see that it was completely adorned with decorations all the way up this tower, everywhere. Just incredible stuff. How are they lifting those stones that high? I don't know. Here's a person for scale, same image. You can see the beautiful roofs. If I zoom in close enough, you can see the blocks here, right? So these are, sure looks to me, the type of blocks that you can't fit a piece of paper in between. I mean, I see it's difficult to even pick up the seams in this picture. You can see them somewhat in some areas. In other areas, I can't even tell where the blocks are. This is just absolutely exquisite work here, and it's massive, massive work. I find the roofs interesting. I don't know why, but they remind me of modern roofs, but they're out of stone, which is cool to me. They've got their windows here with their stone columns along them. There's some stone columns missing there on that left window, but that's a pretty common window style that they used in Indian temples. A little bit of an idea of the size of Angkor Wat, right? We were looking at like it might have been the central pillar, but those pictures, one of those pillars is what we were looking at in those pictures. You could see the person for scale. You see just how massive this is. There's a giant moat around this thing. Also, it's a mile long by 3/4 of a mile long. Huge moat around this. And again, the whole surrounding area is hydraulic water management. Very, very impressive stuff. Not only is this building mind-blowing, this building alone, what we're looking at in this image alone, it's estimated at 10 million stone blocks. 10 million stone blocks in this building right here. And if people were working for 37 years straight, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, laying one block every minute, so quarrying it from 25 miles away, cutting it, shaping it, and then putting it into place once a minute for 37 years straight, 24, just around the clock. That's what it would take to build this. Again, slave labor seems like something's missing, and I'm not convinced it's high technology. I'm not convinced it's laser beams and digital tech and stuff like that. But like, there's a video by Universe Inside You talking about the hydraulic system of Angkor Wat. It's pretty good. I recommend it if you're interested in this, because it does a good job of showing the surrounding areas. It does a good job of explaining just how massive this complex truly is and how impressive it is with how much they terraformed the land here. We're talking about, again, the size of Los Angeles, essentially, completely terraformed, completely dominated by man. Hundreds and hundreds of years later, after neglect, it's still there. A lot of this is still functioning. It's what the point I'm trying to make is that there's so much beyond just laying blocks going into this, the engineering to go into this. How are they lifting the blocks that tall? That's quite a feat. Very impressive feat. And I don't know the largest size of the largest blocks at the top of these towers. They could be relatively small. Maybe they're 50 pounds. Maybe I bet they're probably quite a bit bigger than that, right? But like, they might not be tons and tons. They might be relatively smaller blocks. It's still an incredible feat to get them all the way up there in the air, to get 10 million blocks here. you think about, modern buildings, like we have issues building large buildings today with the foundations. If you don't get the foundation right, the building starts to lean and fall. There's the famous Leaning Tower of Pisa, right? This whole structure is still standing to the point where you can't fit a piece of paper in between these blocks. I don't even know off the top of my head. Quick Google, Angkor Wat age. When was this allegedly constructed? Okay, so the 1100s AD, so about 900 years ago. So this has been standing for 900 years. It hasn't collapsed into the ground. This is a very wet area, right? It's still, I don't want to say in perfect structure because there is a lot of damage to it. There's been a lot of human destruction to it. But as far as withstanding the test of time, it absolutely has. Slave labor doesn't even begin to explain this kind of stuff. It doesn't even begin to explain this kind of stuff. There's so much more going on here than just placing blocks. You have to have such a deep understanding of how things work in order to even begin to execute something like this. And I don't feel like I'm doing justice to the level of complexity that goes into this, but just another picture of Angkor Wat. Just crazy, crazy stuff here. Mind-blowing stuff. All out of stone. I don't know why I find those roofs so interesting, but I do. Those roofs are interesting to me. They are very modern roof-esque, but with stone. And it kind of looks like, I can't really tell where the seams are on this. It looks like there's a seam, but are these just solid pieces of stone going all the way across here? It kind of looks like it is. I don't know 100% on the roofs. More of those windows down there. Just unbelievable stuff here. I think this is the back of it, maybe. People for scale. It really does blow my mind. Here's another good image. You can see the moat. You can see the width of this moat too. It's rectangular, so it's 1 mile long by 3/4 of a mile long, and it's that wide. And that moat is, I'll show in an image later, is just a very small part of the water management system here. You've got some more pools up here. Just ridiculous stuff. And then there's a bunch of information encoded within Angkor Wat as well, just like the Great Pyramid. The sun sets. So if you're standing at the entrance here, the sun sets directly over the main spire on the solstice. On the interior, there's the churning of the galaxy, which is an old Hindu myth. And part of the Hindu myth is there's like 81 demons and 90 angels or something like that. But there's 81 days on one side of the equinox and like 90 on the other. I'm butchering it. I don't remember the details, but there are some very interesting. They were pretty convincing. It was all about like the sun. They claimed there was some stuff about the moon in there too, but didn't go into it. This is all in the Universe Inside You video if you guys want to, look into it more. But it obviously was an intentional alignment with the sunset on the solstice at the very least. And here we go. You can see that moat that I just showed you, right? That's the moat going around. And then you have all of these this was discovered with LiDAR, all of these other canals going around these giant water pools. And there's another temple here and other temples all around this area. This is not even the entire complex, right? That was scanned with LiDAR. It's even bigger than this. This is just one little image to give you some idea of the scale. This place is huge. And this is also an artist's rendering. So how exactly accurate this is, I don't know. Take it with a grain of salt. But there are LiDAR scans. I didn't access the raw LiDAR scan data. I might do that at some point or try to do that at some point. But there's ridiculous levels of terraforming going on. at Angkor Wat. These are just some of the decorations on one of the walls. You can see the level of, it's just cram-packed with figures, right? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like 7 right there, and then another 7, and another 7, and then go around the corner, and then it keeps going around that corner, and around that corner. It's just a ridiculous level of carving and detail, and I don't even know what word to use here, but it's a lot. It's overwhelming. Again, a little bit of sense of scale here. You see these people in the foreground, how tiny they are still, well into the foreground compared to Angkor Wat. It's an absolutely massive, it is the biggest in the world, biggest religious complex in the world. This is, I think this might be Beng Mealea, which I highlighted this to bring up the point I made last week, that I truly do believe everything you're looking at here is within the last 2,000 years. Angkor Wat allegedly 900 years ago. I don't really have a reason to question that. I know a lot of people like to go super ancient. They like to go to 12,000 years ago. But I discussed with the Kailasa Temple how it is a physical representation of the Mahabharata. The Mahabharata has real world events in it from 1,500 years ago. It couldn't be older than that because it can't record things that haven't happened yet, right? So one of the most impressive structures over there, the Kailasa Temple, is, in my mind, very definitively within the last 1,500 years. And again, I don't really have any reason to question the narrative of 1,200 years ago that the mainstream puts forward. I do have a whole lot of questions about how it was built, how long it was, taken to build. But as far as when, 1,200 years ago seems pretty reasonable. And places like Beng Mealea and Prohm and even Bayon here, this is Beng Mealea, right? You can see the roots growing over this. This temple was abandoned for like 200 or 300 years, and it's in ruins already just from nature. You can see some blocks on the ground here, right? You see blocks totally pushed out of the walls here. And it looks really, really cool. Prohm, which I haven't shown any pictures of here yet, but Prohm, very similar to Beng Mealea, I think also very nearby to Beng Mealea. And I believe all of these are nearby to Angkor Wat. Prohm was featured in the Tomb Raider. Wanted to say Indiana Jones, but the Tomb Raider movie from several years ago, that Indian temple that you see with all the roots and trees growing in it, that is Prohm. It looks super cool. But again, just look at the destruction here. Blocks all over the place. A lot of this is still standing because the stonework is so exquisite. Even though the jungle is trying so hard to destroy it, these blocks just don't even have any gaps for the roots to grow in. But obviously they found some gaps and they have done some damage here for sure. This is again Beng Mealea. Again, huge blocks littering the ground. The point I'm making here is that this stuff, especially in India, the climate of India, it is a huge country, so there's many different climates. But these structures wouldn't last from 12,000 years ago. There's absolutely zero chance. Forget the human aspect of destruction, because they wouldn't last from that. I talked about how several different cultures have raided what was the giant why is my brain like this? Anyways, they raided and stole blocks from it for decades, right? That's a very normal thing. These things get recycled. These things are not lasting 12,000 years. The level of destruction that you're seeing would be far more. You wouldn't even recognize this stuff. There's one specific temple, and I've really been having a hell of a time with search engines lately, but there's this one specific temple. I want to say it's in Cambodia. I'm not confident about that at all, though. It's a Khmer, however you say that, Khmer style temple. It has the lotus buds all over the top of it. It was a black or at least very dark stoned temple. And there's these lotus buds all across the entire roof of it. And so like when you look down at it from the top, it looks very, very fractally. But this temple was completely consumed by the jungle. It was not recognized at all as a temple when it was first found. It was just recognized as cut stone blocks. And so they started excavating, going, hey, what is this? Realized it used to be a temple, and they were actually able to reassemble the entire thing block by block, and it is now fully reconstructed. It looks amazing today. And I cannot for the life of me find this thing on Google. I just wanted to feature it, one, because it's super fractally and trippy and looks really, really cool, but two, because it was fully destroyed by the jungle. Absolutely nothing left as far as a structure goes. It was just a pile of rubble, but they did manage to reassemble it, which is very cool. But the point being that nature, humanity, all of it, none of this stuff would be existing from 12,000 years ago. It just wouldn't make it. This is all pretty modern stuff that we're looking at in India. This is Prohm. So this is what was featured in the Tomb Raider movie. And it's really, really cool aesthetic of some points. Oh, okay. I thought I had more images of Prohm. I did have more images of Prohm. They're not getting saved. Technical difficulties. Don't know what's going on there. It's rather frustrating. But yeah, just the aesthetic of nature and these ruins, it looks so cool. I would love to visit these places. I mean, unfortunately, nature will continue destroying them, but for this brief time period, it is a super, super cool aesthetic. I mean, it doesn't get much cooler than this, in my opinion. Okay, so on to the next topic, which is Sigiriya and Angkor Wat. You can see this is a 49-day walk. Angkor Wat is in Sri Lanka down here. Yeah, I believe that's correct. And Sigiriya is all the way over here. Is that Cambodia? That might be Cambodia. I might also be stupid. But very far away, right? And this is from Sigiriya. This is a water fountain that is still functioning today. Sigiriya is the Lion Mountain. Here we go. So it's this giant cliff top mountain on top of this giant granite, solid granite mountain. You can see that the top of this was terraformed quite a bit. Structures were built here. We don't know what all was up here because there was probably more. But, this is what's left. Hopefully I have good pictures of this. God, I don't know what got saved and what didn't. You can see the lion paws up front here, right? But are they actually lion paws? They don't really look like lion paws. For one thing, they only have 3 toes. Lions have 4. So some people think these could be lizard paws, dragon paws, who knows? And here you get a bit of the sense of the scale. These water gardens out here are hydraulically connected to this giant granite stone here, and the large water tank that's on top of it, which you can see a little bit of it here. It's really, really big. This unfortunately doesn't show all of it, I think. Okay, here. You can see it here, right? I forget how many gallons, whole lot of gallons. And this thing stays full of water year round. There are some type of water pumps that pump water up into this thing year round. It also has a drain in the bottom so it doesn't overflow. So it maintains its water level, not perfectly, but pretty well. It manages on its own throughout the very heavy rainy seasons and the dry seasons of India that happen here. And people don't know. It's a lot of speculation here, right? Because there is a drain in the bottom of this. Where does that drain go? No one actually knows. And you can see down here below this mountain, this is part of it. There's a bunch of water management systems down here, different water pools, water fountains that still work today. There's underground plumbing connecting this stuff. I don't think we really know how it works. I don't believe we've dug it up to find out because it is still working. I don't think they want to break it. Then that would be pretty tragic if they did dig this up and just destroyed it. So I'm kind of glad they haven't. But this is a mystery of ancient hydraulic technology. Like how the water pool at the top works, they don't know. How these work down at the bottom, they don't entirely know. Are they connected? A lot of people speculate they are. How would that be possible? How do you, in the drain that's in that, giant water tank at the top, again, is smaller than a person can fit through. So like, where does that drain go? How do you carve that drain? There's so many questions left unanswered. There's so many ridiculous marvels in India. And there's some more I wanted to say about this. Okay, so you can see here, there's no way up this thing. In this picture, you see some stairs. Those are modern. Those are added in modern times. Those weren't there when this was initially discovered. And it took a really long time to discover this place because it is way up here. People didn't know this existed up here because people couldn't climb up there to see it. So it was only discovered relatively recently, relative being a relative term. But yeah, there's 50-pound, I don't know if I can make it out from here, but there's a lot of marble up here. There's a ton of bricks. There's a lot of red bricks up here that were used to construct this. So the bricks were carried up the mountain. Well, hauling bricks up is somewhat understandable. They're not so heavy. They're not so hard to deal with. But the volume of bricks and the height of this and the assumed difficulty of the climb does make it rather impressive. But then there's also a lot of marble that was brought up to the top of this mountain, or whatever you want to call it. And those are pretty large pieces of marble weighing in excess of 50 pounds. They make up a lot of the ground. So I believe here, you're looking at marble paving all throughout here. How are they climbing up this while carrying 50 pounds of marble? And then doing that over and 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 over again. Again, there was no remnants of any type of structure on the outside of this when it was discovered. There's no record of remnants of stuff on the outside of this to suggest that there, was once something on top. So like people just thought this was a giant rock until someone finally climbed up there. How are they getting up? There's a lot of very interesting features along the rock too. You can't really make them out from this image, but there's channels carved around the rock that are believed to be man-made channels. I don't think there's any in this. There's all kinds of interesting features on this stuff. And there's these, again, you can't really tell, but there are some potential like circular holes that were drilled into the side. Maybe at one point those held some kind of structure on the outside of this place that did facilitate climbing, and who knows what else. But like a lot of the things I'm talking about here, here's one of those channels in the rock. A lot is just not known about this. There aren't great records for a lot of these structures. This one was completely lost for a very long time. They're very mysterious. You can see here these flowing, you got a water fountain there that is pumping water still today. Whenever Sigiriya was built, it's still functioning, got functioning hydraulics. There's a functioning water fountain still in front of it with beautiful little streams. I mean, unbelievably impressive stuff here. So let me read through chat. Let me see what you guys have been talking about. Second most fair selection ever. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know, Mr. Laser. I don't know about hiding the artifacts. They're certainly trying. I found a museum today in Ohio that had really, really large Hopewell and Andean galleries of Indian artifacts that were available to the public to see. They still have a handful of images online, but it does seem that they have removed their large catalogs online. and it closed down in September of last year. And I wonder how much that had to do with the incoming NAGPRA update in January of this year. They have not reopened. They were, I think, maybe the largest collection or one of the largest collections of Hopewell artifacts. It's really upsetting to just see the destruction of history and the erasure of history. Do you watch Fleckus 2, Mr. Galunas? That was a joke they made. Yeah, Tartaria Trump would be wild, and I'm hopeful. I'm not like holding my breath for it, but I'm hopeful that he could pull off something like that, because that would be, I think that could really have a very large impact on just like the whole mentality of the whole country. I think that could really wake something up inside of people that's been dormant and has been put to sleep through our modern lifestyle. I guess I don't need this anymore. What kind of hat does the good doctor wear? Hail Goob. Archaeologists are cool. Well, I think archaeologists are really lame for the most part, but Dr. Elizabeth Weiss is definitely cool. She's very cool. Yeah. They get smaller than even children can fit, though, as well, Mr. Laser. So I don't know how even whatever. I don't need to get into that. But yeah, I don't know how the tunnels were built, and I don't think child labor explains it, because they're too small even for them. Could be gnomes. Could be gnomes. Yeah, I also had images of walls. It is really frustrating that the images I'm saving aren't saving. That's taken me off a lot, because I had more to show you. I had more to talk about. I had more points I wanted to make, but the images aren't there. It's frustrating. So you can make mistakes if you have a plan B for the designs. It's not like these things are perfectly symmetrical. And that's actually a question that I would love to know the answer to. I would love for someone to go there and actually measure these things. Go measure the Kailasa Temple, right? How perfectly symmetrical is it? And getting perfect measurements on it will be difficult, because it has been damaged quite a bit. It has been repaired quite a bit. There's a lot of concrete repairs that have been added to the Kailasa Temple at this point. But I think, not every part's been damaged, so you could still find some points, some reference points that are probably in pretty good shape. And even with repairs and stuff, like, you can still kind of estimate, okay, well, here's where it should have been, here's where it was, right? Does that match up? How well does it match up? How level are these things? How symmetrical? Because I don't know how symmetrical they are. I can tell you that looking at images, I don't see anything looking wonky. There's nothing that I look at and go, oh, that's obviously lopsided or uneven. Nothing like that stands out to me. I mean, on the rough walls, right, the totally unfinished walls around it, sure, right. But like, of the main structure itself, I don't see that. And it could be there. Maybe I'm just not seeing it because these pictures are, they're taken at angles, right? It can be hard to see that kind of stuff in an image unless it's pretty dramatic. But at least I can say that I don't see anything dramatic, right? So yeah, I would love if someone actually scanned the Kailasa Temple, scanned a lot of these stuff, measured a lot of this stuff. How perfectly symmetrical is it? Is a question that I would love to know the answer to. Can I truly say not a single mistake? No, because it's been damaged. Could some of that damage have been original? It is possible, but again, no substantial mistakes, no super significant mistakes, or if they did make them, like Boo Blazer pointed out, they had a backup plan and they covered it up and fixed it in some other way. Regardless, it's an absolutely mind-blowing feat. It's really, really impressive. current Indians are not the people who did this. That's entirely possible. They're around the time of Buddhism coming in. I believe also a pretty large population came from the Caucasus Mountains, and the caste system was established and stuff like that. So, but again, like, we're not talking super ancient here. We're talking within the last 2,000 years. So unless there was some major displacement of peoples, which does happen, could have happened, I think the people in India today probably are very closely related to the people of India that were building this stuff, because I do believe it is recent, 2,000 years recent, right? And yeah, I think I struggle. These are really talented slaves. If it is slaves doing this, they're very, very, very talented slaves. I think we're looking at a civilization that was just generally more impressive, generally accomplishing more than these people have been given credit for. To dedicate that much resources into these buildings. And I've shown you such a small fraction of the buildings in India and Cambodia and these surrounding areas. There's tens and tens of thousands of temples, and not all of them are this exquisite, but a lot of them are, and they're all impressive. Some more so than others, right? But just the amount of labor being dedicated to these things, something's being missed. I'm quite convinced of that. A larger population. I don't know what's being missed, but things don't add up to me. Slave labor doesn't adequately satisfy me as an explanation. Yeah, that's. I don't know what those things are, but I might. Are those guns or planes or something? I don't know what those are. Yeah, one of the structures, which I think, again, the images weren't included. One of the structures I wanted to show was in Thailand. I don't think I showed it. But yeah, also Cambodia. You've eaten dinosaurs. Yeah, the idea that dinosaurs and people interacted is in a very out there idea for a lot of people. It's something that's not too terribly out there for me. I don't necessarily think it was likely, but there are several examples that would suggest that it might have happened. That Stegosaurus, carving being one of them. And there's a guy on YouTube who hunts down extinct animals. And he doesn't hunt them. He doesn't kill them, right? He's just trying to find them. And I don't even know how many extinct animals he's found. It's a lot. He has found a lot of extinct animals. So the idea that a couple dinos might have survived somewhere and people interacted with them and recorded them isn't the craziest thought to me. Are you suggesting what are you suggesting could be geopolymer, Mr. Laser? The the Kailasa Temple and the Vettuvan Coil, or the other structures as well? I don't think any of them are, frankly. I don't think any of them are geopolymer. But there is geopolymer used in India, and good God, I can only imagine trying to find this again in the search engine. Probably never will. But there are examples of like stone pillars, right, that were believed to be stone, and then they're broken and you can see bricks underneath them. So it's like bricks, a brick pillar that was then encased with some type of geopolymer or concrete or something. There are examples of geopolymer in India being used. I don't think I've shown any here. I think that's all stone blocks. Yeah, high technology, Stone Age. Yep. Yes, and I do understand that, Slav. I do understand that, like, the slaves would not be doing the fine detail work. Artisans would be doing that. it's still a lot. And then specifically with like the Kailasa Temple, it's one piece of stone. You don't get any do-overs. So I struggle with the slave narrative. Yeah. It just, again, I don't know what exactly is being missed, but yeah, the narrative we're given does not add up to me. Something's being missed. It just doesn't work, right? The story of our past just doesn't work. You look at this stuff and you listen to what the archaeologists and historians say. By the way, India's archaeology and history is very, very fuzzy. I'm not going to get too into it today because I'll do it in a later episode, but like a lot of it just isn't known and is just guesswork. But archaeologists will tell you, here's what happened, here's when it happened, here's who did it, like it's just like going back to I mean, there's a bajillion examples I could use, but like the luminescence dating in Egypt, every single date range was 2,000 years wide, but they go, yes, we know this was constructed in 4,659 BC. Exactly. We confirmed it with these tests. It's like, you didn't confirm anything. So, the actual history, the actual story of India is very loose. They will tell you that they know it. They'll tell you they understand it. They'll present it that way, but I don't believe they do whatsoever. And if you look into it, it becomes very clear that they don't. They go, oh, we don't have records from here where, the records we're reading are from 600 years later. And it's like, whatever. It's so, they don't know. They don't know, man. I recently listened to the Pocahontas song, Color of the Wind, and I forgot just how like radical the lyrics were. The Pocahontas lyrics are actually pretty they're pretty something. Yeah. And if it is just these people having so much free time, how and why is such a population having so much free time? And then compare that to us today in our, like something doesn't add up there. And I know our modern world is unbelievably corrupted and we're very deliberately held down, and oppressed. But I know that'll sound silly to some people, but I've gone into it in previous episodes. Even accounting for the modern corruption, like that line of thinking, which is largely the mainstream line of thinking, it's just like, okay, how you're telling me these are primitive, dumb ooga booga cavemen essentially, but their lives are so perfect, their society is so perfect that people are just chilling around having enough time to do this in their free time. Like, just doesn't add up, man. Just doesn't add up. I don't believe the Vatican is bigger than Angkor Wat. No, I don't believe it is. Yeah, I believe, Igor, it was Ta Prohm, the dinosaur depiction. I believe you're right. And Ta Prohm is nearby Angkor Wat. The name of Sigiriya, I think I said that, but Sigiriya is the clifftop creation. Hey, if you have that footage, Mr. Galunis, please upload that. That's something I was talking about in previous episodes. Like, if you have that kind of stuff, share it, preserve it, give it back to the world because it's gone now. So the only way we get it back is if someone like you uploads it. So please do. If you want, I will feature it on my channel. If you have mad footage, I will show it, or you can show it however you want to do it, but please put it out there. Get it on the internet. Show that stuff. Please. Okay. None of this is really history related. There will be an after show. Probably starting at like 6:10. This show's going a little bit late, but okay. I am caught up on the chat. So yeah, I think that's the ep. Sorry I didn't give anyone a chance to call in, but you are more than welcome to call in on the after show. and I hope you guys do. I've got some old excavations of Rome, some pictures going more on that mud flood, pulling that thread a little bit. Just exploring some ideas. So catch me in the after show. Sign up in the Patreon to do that. Join the Discord if you want to chat with like-minded individuals, and definitely tune in next week, the 16th. Remember, it is Saturday at 5 p.m. EST, not Sunday. So next Saturday for Dr. Elizabeth Weiss. Very, very excited about that episode, and I will catch you fellas later. Peace out.